The sun was cruel. It scorched everything it touched. The earth cracked under the weight of it, and the air shimmered like glass. In the middle of that burning emptiness, a young woman stumbled through the tall, dead grass. Her wrists were tied in front of her. The ropes had cut deep into her skin, raw and red. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps. Each step was a war she was losing. She fell. The ground tore at her knees. Dust filled her mouth, choking her. For a long moment she stayed down, the heat pressing her into the earth like a punishment. Then her eyes caught something ahead. A broken barrel. Old, splintered, half buried in the dry soil. She crawled toward it, dragging her tied hands like chains. When she reached it, she tried to pull herself up. The wood gave way, leaving splinters in her palms. She leaned against it anyway. It was all she had left to hold on to. Her dress was torn, stained with dirt and blood. Her hair clung to her face in wet strands. Flies gathered on her arms, her lips, the open wounds. She tried to brush them away, but her hands were too weak. Her whisper came out cracked, dry as sand. Please, God, not like this. The sound of hooves broke the stillness, slow, steady, getting closer. Her body tensed. Her eyes darted to the horizon. A horse, a rider, tall, silent. The sun behind him made him a black silhouette against the light. Panic surged through her, but her legs wouldn't obey. Her body had given up. Her mind hadn't. She pressed her forehead against the hot wood of the barrel and whispered to herself, "Not again. Please, not again." The rider stopped a few paces away. The horse snorted, pawing at the ground. Boots hit the dirt. The sound of spurs. A shadow fell across her. She turned her head slightly, eyes half open, her vision swimming. The man's face was hidden by the sun, but she saw the gun on his hip. Her heart pounded once, twice, then steadied into a hollow beat. She forced the words out, barely more than breath. "Don't untie me. Just do it." The man froze. For a moment, the wind stopped too. Only the buzzing of flies and the creak of the saddle behind him filled the air. He looked down at her. Her lips trembled. Her eyes were open but distant, like she was already gone. He saw the bruises, the brand on her arm, the dirt caked into every line of her face. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just took off his hat and let the sun hit his weathered face. His name was Jack Callahan, 58 years old, a man who had lost everything but still carried the habit of doing what was right. He had seen death before. He had caused it. But this was something different. This was cruelty written on skin. This was what hell looked like in daylight. He knelt beside her. "Miss," he said softly, "you're safe now." She laughed, a sound broken and small. "Safe?" Her voice cracked on the word. "There's no safe." Not with him still breathing. Jack's eyes narrowed. She looked at him, pupils wide and unfocused. Her lips trembled. Wade. Her body went still. Her head dropped forward. She collapsed against him, her breath barely there. Jack caught her before she hit the dirt. Her skin burned with fever. He lifted her easily, her body limp as a rag doll. He stared at the horizon, his jaw tight. The name echoed in his mind. Wade. He knew it. He hated it. And he knew this wasn't chance. He glanced down at the woman in his arms, her wrists still tied, her pulse weak. And in her silence, he heard something he hadn't in years, the sound of responsibility. "Aw, sorts," he muttered under his breath. "All right, miss. You picked the wrong man to beg from, because I ain't the one who'll kill you." He lifted her onto his horse, mounted up, and turned toward the valley. The sun blazed behind them, and the wind carried the faint scent of gun oil and blood. Somewhere far away, a crow called out. Jack didn't look back. Jack stood there a long while, staring at the girl in his arms. The ropes around her wrists looked older than her fear. He took his pocket knife, cut through them, and watched her flinch when the tension snapped. Her hands fell limp, the skin raw and bruised. "Easy now," he muttered, his voice half gravel, half regret. She didn't answer. Her eyes rolled back, and her body went still again. He checked the horizon one last time. No dust, no riders, just the heavy air and the sound of cicadas. Then he lifted her onto his horse, holding her steady against him. The ride back to the ranch was quiet except for the wind. Every few minutes she'd twitch, whispering things that didn't make sense by names, places, bits of prayers. He didn't listen too close. He'd learned long ago that pain had its own language. By the time they reached the ranch, the sun was sinking low behind the hills. The old place sat tired and silent, the paint long gone from the fences, the barn leaning like it had given up years ago. It wasn't much, but it was safe. Jack laid the girl on a cot in the spare room. He poured some water from a jug and touched a bit to her lips. She stirred, but her eyes stayed closed. The fever was still burning. He sat beside her, rubbing the back of his neck, thinking how he'd sworn off saving people years ago. He'd buried too many already, and yet here he was. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she did was reach for her wrist. She stared at them, seeing the rope burns, then at him. "You untied me," she whispered. "Seemed like the decent thing to do," he said quietly. Her eyes searched his face, suspicious at first, then softer. "Why help me? You don't even know me," Jack shrugged. "Guess I don't need to. You look like someone who's had enough hurt for one lifetime." She stared past him for a moment, her lips trembling. "My name's Clara. I was a teacher once, back east." He nodded slowly. The word teacher didn't sound right in this empty land. "What were you doing out here, Clara?" She hesitated. "I thought I was coming to teach." "But they lied." Her voice cracked. "They said it was a school." "It wasn't." Jack looked at her a long time. He didn't ask more. He didn't need to. He'd seen that look before. Back when men did worse things under a different flag. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain far off in the distance. Jack turned toward the door. He had questions, but none that could be answered tonight. And as he stepped out into the fading light, a single thought crossed his mind. If Clara Wynne was telling the truth, then the devil himself was back in Montana. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. Jack was out by the trough, watering the horse. The heat was already building, the kind that made the air dance above the dirt. Clara sat on the porch, wrapped in one of Jack's old shirts, watching the horizon like something out there was still chasing her. She didn't talk much. Jack didn't ask much. That was fine by both of them. By noon, the cicadas had gone loud, and the air smelled like storm and dust. That's when Jack heard the sound of hooves. Not from town, from the south road. He looked up, hand resting on his holster. A rider appeared, small, slow, her horse limping. The woman slid off before the horse even stopped, her dress covered in trail dust. Jack blinked once, then twice. Eliza. She looked thinner than he remembered, her hair pinned messy, face pale but determined. "Jack," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't know where else to go." Jack frowned. "Eliza Reed, Tom's wife. You look like hell, girl. What happened?" She didn't answer right away. She just reached into her saddlebag and pulled out a small wooden box, held it tight like it might disappear. "I brought something. You need to see it." Jack took the box, felt the weight of it, heavier than it looked. Inside were papers, letters, names written in neat cursive, receipts, money, and one thing that made Jack's blood run cold, Tom's handwriting. "Eliza," he said quietly. "What is this?" Her voice cracked. "It's everything, Jack. Everything Wade's been doing. And Tom's part in it." She took a breath that sounded more like a sob. "I tried to stop him. I begged him. But he said Wade owns him now. Said there's no way out except death." Jack's jaw tightened. He looked at the papers again, the ink still fresh, names of women, payments, dates. He felt something dark crawl up his spine. "Eliza, you shouldn't have brought this here. If Wade finds out you took it, he'll send men." "I know," she said, eyes filling with tears. "That's why I came to you. You're the only one he's afraid of." Jack didn't answer. He just turned toward the horizon, the sun glaring off his hat brim. He could almost feel the storm brewing miles away, rolling closer every second. Behind him, Clara stepped out onto the porch, eyes wide as she saw Eliza for the first time. 3 lives now tangled together by fear, by family, and by one man's evil. Jack picked up the box, holding it like a curse, and he muttered low, mostly to himself, "If Wade's coming, then hell's coming with him. So stay right here with me, friend." Pour yourself a cup of tea, or maybe coffee if it's that kind of day. Tell me, what time is it where you are, and where are you listening from? And if you're still riding with us through this story, hit that subscribe button, partner, because what's coming next might just change everything for Jack Callahan. The sun hit hard that morning. Jack rode out with the weight of a man who had made his choice. Behind him, the ranch shrank into the shimmering heat. Ahead, the empty plain stretched toward the broken church Eliza had spoken of. She had begged him not to go alone. Clara had said nothing, only watched from the porch with that quiet fear in her eyes. Jack had seen that look before. It always meant goodbye. The air shimmered as he rode. Dust clung to his coat, sweat to his neck. Every fence post looked like a marker for another soul lost to this land. By the time the steeple came into view, the world had gone silent except for the sound of flies. The church stood half buried in weed. Windows gone, doors hanging loose. Jack dismounted, tied his horse to a fence rail, and waited. "Anyone here?" he called. Only the echo answered. Then a voice drifted from the shade. "Always thought you'd die slow, Captain." Jack turned his head just enough to see him. Corbin, Wade's right hand. A man he once fought beside when law and chaos looked the same. Jack sighed. "So Wade sent you." Corbin smiled. "Small and mean. He sent me to remind you where you stand. You don't belong in his business." Jack's hand rested near his Colt. "I'm not in his business, and I'm cleaning it up." Corbin's grin faded. For a moment, the world stopped breathing. Jack said quietly, "You could still walk away, son." Then came the sound that never needed words. 2 guns clearing leather. The shot cracked the silence wide open. Dust leapt from the ground. Jack staggered back, shoulder burning. Corbin dropped to his knees, blood dark against the dust. He tried to speak, but the wind carried his breath away. Jack stood still, chest heaving, smoke rising from his gun barrel. He looked down at the dying man and saw something glinting near his hand, a brass lighter. Jack picked it up, turned it in his palm. Letters scratched into the side, PC, Tom Callahan. The sound of the wind changed then, hot air sweeping over the grass, carrying the smell of rain and gunpowder. Jack clenched his fist around the lighter. For the first time in years, his eyes burned. He looked toward the west, where dark clouds were gathering fast. "All right, little brother," he muttered. "If that's how it is, then come find me." Thunder rolled across the plains. The first drops of rain hit the dirt like blood, and somewhere far beyond that storm, Tom Callahan was already riding home. The rain came fast that night, cold and sudden, washing the dust and blood from the land. Jack rode hard, one hand pressed to his shoulder, the other gripping the reins. Lightning tore the sky wide open, lighting his path home. He didn't pray. He just whispered his brother's name with every breath. When the ranch came into view, the storm was already tearing through the valley. The barn door slammed open and shut in the wind. Clara stood near the porch, holding a lantern. Behind her, Eliza cried out from the house. Jack jumped off his horse and ran inside. Tom was there, wet, angry, shaking with something between rage and regret. He held a gun, but his eyes were worse than the barrel. They were full of shame. "Why, Tom," Jack's voice was tired, not angry. "You could have built something honest, that you could have been better." Tom's lips trembled. "I tried, but Wade owns everything. The law, the people. Me. You made your choices," Jack said softly. "But you can still choose again." Tom's hand shook. Then came the sound that splits silence in two. A single gunshot. When the smoke cleared, Tom lay on the floor, his gun still warm. Jack dropped to his knees beside him. Blood soaked into the old wooden planks, the same floor they once learned to walk on as boys. Tom's eyes searched his brother's face. Being decent, it never saved anyone. Jack shook his head, tears mixing with rain. "It saved you now." Tom's chest rose once, then fell still. The wind outside began to calm, somewhere far away. The thunder rolled back into the mountains. Jack stepped out into the rain. Claire was there, holding Eliza close. No words were needed. He just nodded once, the kind of nod that meant everything and nothing at the same time. By dawn, the storm had passed. Jack saddled 2 horses and handed Clara an old book. Great Expectations. The pages were worn, the spine broken, but it was all he had left from the life before. "Keep this," he said. "Teach again. Make it mean something." She smiled faintly. "You're coming with us, aren't you?" Jack looked toward the northern hills, light touching the wet grass. "I'll ride a while. There's still work to finish." As they parted, the sun broke through the clouds. For the first time in years, the land looked clean. Sometimes being decent doesn't change the world, but it changes the few hearts still listening. And maybe that's enough. So tell me, friend, do you still believe a man can find redemption after losing everything? Do you think decency still matters in a world like ours? If this story made you stop for even a second, give it a like and subscribe before you go so you can ride with us again next time. There are still more stories out there waiting for the dawn